I am here with Ann Hammond today. This is Inspire Me. Ann Hammond is the executive director of the Lexington Public Library. Before attending library school, Ann was at various points in her life a veterinary assistant, an officer in the U.S. Navy, a stay-at-home mom, an agronomist, and a forensic DNA scientist. After earning her MLS from the Catholic University of America in 1993, Ann spent several years working in special and academic libraries before finding her true calling, public libraries. She began as a part-time teen services librarian with San Diego County Library and worked her way through reference librarian, branch manager, adult services coordinator, and regional supervisor for 11 of SDCL's 33 branches. In 2007, she became deputy director of Alameda County Library, a 10-branch system in the San Francisco Bay Area. In September of 2010, Ann was named executive director of the Lexington Public Library system. Of the many and varied places she has enjoyed living, Lexington is where she feels most at home and is thrilled to put down her roots here. She loves the variety of the city, the beauty of the countryside, and the welcoming attitude of the people. The staff of the Lexington Public Library is an amazing group of folks, and she looks forward to working with them to provide excellence in library services for the people of Lexington and Fayette County. Okay, so now I'm going to ask Ann some questions. That was her introduction. So why did you pick to go to library school?
Well, that's an interesting question. I had been working for a number of years at the crime laboratory, and that was very exciting, very interesting. It was the beginning of the DNA science for forensic purposes. We were the first laboratory in the U.S. to do DNA fingerprinting. So we were doing all of the original research and writing the papers and doing the expert witness testimony in court that established this as a legitimate science. So like I say, it was very exciting times. Long hours, happy to do it though. Very gruesome work, not always the happiest of times, and some threats to personal safety as well. So, after a few years, I realized I felt like I was making a difference in the world, making a safer place for people, bringing justice to victims of crime, but I wanted to do something more positive. I wanted to see people smile more than I had an opportunity to in a crime lab. And that kind of led me to libraries, and it's been a great career for me.
That's so exciting. So
yeah.
were you recruited then to help with this forensic DNA science?
Yes, actually, I completed my master's in agronomy at the University of Maryland. So I studied plant genetics and soil microbiology, and my goal at that time was to become a researcher at the Beltsville Agricultural Station. But at the time I graduated, it was during a recession, and they had a hiring freeze on. So then I was offered a job with Cellmark Diagnostics, the laboratory, because, genetics is genetics. It doesn't matter if it's plants or people. And it was a good opportunity for me to be able to make use of that career and that degree that I had worked so hard for. So that's how I ended up in the crime lab.
Okay, awesome. What was it like being a female officer in the U.S. Navy?
Well, it was a very good thing. This was in the late 70s, so I had graduated from college. I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do, so I thought, well, this is good. I'll go into the military. I came from a military family, so my dad, my uncles, my cousins, a lot of us were military, and that seemed like a natural path for me. And I think that had things turned out differently in my personal life, it would have been a good career for me. In the military, especially at that time, I think they were just beginning to broaden the opportunities for women in the service. Now it's a much, much more equalized career path than it even was then, but it was kind of at the beginnings of that at that time. However, I was in for 13 months, and I got married, and then I was sent to the Caribbean, and my husband was sent to Rhode Island, and we decided that's not really a good long-term solution for us. So I resigned my commission.
That's understandable. And you touched a little bit on how back then it was not as easy for women to advance in the military. Did you? But I mean, you were an officer, so obviously you.
Yeah. Well, I was an officer, but there were definitely limits. There were things you could do and things you couldn't do. At that time, women were not allowed to serve on ships. I believe some women were starting to go to flight school, but it wasn't a very, it wasn't usual. Generally, they went into administrative types of positions.
So you were in charge of then, like, a group of men?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, wow. I think that's awesome. As a woman. Back in the 70s. How did you, well, we talked about how, a little bit, so you became a DNA forensic scientist because this is what was going on at the time. This is the latest and the greatest, and this, because of the economy, you couldn't, there wasn't anything in agronomy, yes. Why were public libraries your true calling?
When I first got into libraries, when I first went to library school, I assumed that I would be an academic librarian because of my science background. I thought, well, this works. I can be a science librarian. I'm still connected with science, still connected with research. And I did that for a while. I worked in, I worked for a company, not a company, it was a group called the Center for Childhood Injury Prevention, which was part of the Graduate School of Public Health at San Diego State University. So I had a very small one-person library, and we did research and wrote papers and did an annual National Injury Prevention Conference. So that was interesting. I also worked part-time as an academic librarian, and I worked in a medical library and a museum library. Very, very interesting experiences, all of them. But then I was offered this part-time position with San Diego County Library, which is a public library, and I thought I had no real career leanings toward public libraries, but it seemed like it would be an interesting thing to try. And from the very first day, I was hooked. You know, it was just so alive and busy, and you could see the effect that we were having on people's lives. And I thought that's where it's at. You know, research is wonderful, academics, that's a great place to be, but for me, it's the public library.
Well, great. So you said that it was the impact that it had that you saw on people.
Oh,
so
yeah.
what was a part of the impact that you saw in a public library versus a private library?
Well, people come to us who need help, obviously, people who are doing, you know, a science fair project, a term paper that is an immediate need, and you can help with that. People who need to take computer classes, who need help with their resumes or job applications. People who are researching their family trees, they're doing genealogy research. People who like to read, and they want to talk about the books they read and get more recommendations. There's so much that public libraries do to advance education within their communities and to bring people together and create a sense of community. So it's a really vibrant place to be.
It's awesome. I get a lot of books and audio tapes in the library, so I'm 100% for it. And what was it like to come into a new job with a little bit of controversy?
A little bit of pressure, yeah. That's not always a bad thing. I felt like we had a great organization here, and maybe people had lost track of that and needed to be reminded of it again. So we did a lot of PR. My marketing department is fabulous. They got me out in the community a lot in the beginning, and actually continuing with that. But what was gratifying to me was wherever I went and whoever I talked with, people would say, "Oh, I love the library," and the entire community, the staff, everybody was ready to just put the past behind them, move on, and emphasize the good stuff that we do.
Good. I'm all about positivity.
Oh,
so
yes.
So what advice would you give to future generations about success?
Well, there's that old saying, "Do what you love and the money will follow." And it sounds trite, but it really is true. I think that if you don't care about what you're doing, it doesn't really matter how successful you are financially. And if you do care about what you're doing, that's what's the most important. I think that success for me is having a well-balanced life, having a family that I love, and being able to come to work and see a positive effect of what we do here.
Mm-hmm. So basically, go after what you love to do.
Yeah.
And even if you're not going to be making tons of money right away.
Or ever.
Or ever.
I mean, that's a reality. Some people choose to step back from success and just do what they love. And for them, that is success. Other people choose to chase the dollars. You got to figure out what's most important for you.
That's some really good advice. And in hindsight, would you have done anything differently?
Not a thing. No. I've had a great opportunity to have a lot of different types of experiences, live in a lot of different places. And I think everything I've ever done or learned has contributed to who I am today. So for me, this is who I am and where I need to be, and this is how I got here.
Awesome. So it's all about the journey and,
Yeah.
This is a question from Dawn Pope. I have to throw that in for her, from the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, Dawn.
Which format of book do you prefer, paperback or electronic?
Oh, Dawn. It's entirely dependent on the circumstance. I love reading hardback books. I love paperbacks for their portability. But last year I got my first Kindle, and I'm getting kind of addicted to that thing. You can take, for example, I went to a conference last month, and normally when I travel, I've got at least 3 books with me because I need one for the journey out, one for the journey back, and one just in case I don't like one of the other 2. So I was able to load 5 books on my Kindle, and it's this big. It's also good for when you're in bed and you don't want to turn the lights on. You can just open up the Kindle. So what we're seeing in the library kind of mirrors that people are format agnostic. They'll read the ebooks, but they're not giving up their print books, and vice versa. So it depends on what you're using it for. If you're traveling, obviously the ebooks are better. If you're reading to children, it's better to have a print book.
Wow. So you went through the Leadership Lexington class. What was that like?
It was an amazing experience. I'm so happy I had that opportunity. Because I was new to Lexington, I didn't know a whole lot about the community, and that was the best way for me to get acquainted with the history and the institutions, the organizations, the people in this area. And so it was just a wonderful experience.
Glad to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Glad to hear it. And what is the key to pursuing or living out your dreams?
Well, figure out what your dream is. And your dreams can change over time. Mine have. So don't be afraid to adapt as you go along. If you start on a path and it works for a while and then it's no longer the right thing for you, don't be afraid of that. Change is a good thing.
Change is a good thing. Everybody hear that? Change is a good thing. Of all of the facts you have come across, what was the most interesting fact, just off of the top of your head?
Most interesting fact. Okay. Did you know that last year more people visited Lexington Public Library than went to all of the UK basketball and football games, both home and away, and Keeneland spring and summer meet?
Wow, that is an amazing, I mean, that's a lot. How many people is that?
That is
Over
almost 3 million.
3 million people visited our public libraries last year. You said that was more than the people who went to
More
home
than all the UK
and away,
games.
basketball, football, and spring and fall Keeneland meets.
Yes.
That's amazing. Okay, what role do libraries play in a society overall, would you say?
Public libraries specifically?
Yes.
Okay, so we are I've heard it described different ways. The People's University is one way to look at it. It's public education is our basic mission. So starting from birth, encouraging children, helping them learn the concepts and the things they need to learn so that they're ready to read and they can begin to read and to be successful in school. Helping them as they go through their school careers, helping adults with continuing education needs, helping our new citizens who may need help with the language and the customs, computer assistance, resumes, I mentioned that. Seniors, we do a lot of things geared towards seniors. So basically the entire lifespan, the public library is there to help with your continuing education.
That's a lot of things the library plays a role in. So this is a question from Don Pope. I have to insert that from the Chamber of Commerce. What is more intimidating, story hour at the public library or being an officer on a Navy ship?
Different types of stress there. For me, it would be being an officer on a ship because I simply adore story hour at the library.
Yeah. I think she was thinking the loud kids, maybe being loud in a library. That's kind of...
it depends on what triggers your stress. To me, that's just like, throw me in that briar patch.
Oh, me too. I feel the same way about kids. How do you get the message to youth that it is cool to be smart?
I think I'm seeing more of that now because we offer so many different opportunities for them and ways that they can interact with their library and with each other. For example, we have the digital studio at the Northside branch, and teens go there a lot. They make their own music videos, their own stop motion animated films. They're doing all kinds of things with technology and with media. We've got, for example, at the Beaumont branch, there's a really strong teen advisory board, and they like to plan activities. I think just this past Friday they had an after-hours program. So after the library closes, the teens come in and they can play the music and have pizza and do games and stuff in the library. We're trying to offer a variety of ways that they can become engaged with each other and with the community. And I think it's a challenge sometimes, but it's a real opportunity too.
Good. Glad to hear it. You can make music videos at the North Library. That's pretty cool. How do you get kids to get focused on studies rather than their iPhone? That's from Don Pope.
Well, how do you get kids to focus on their studies? Stress is a great thing sometimes, and when that paper's due tomorrow, you've got to put the iPhone aside and buckle down. Until the kid's really ready, there's, you work with where they are at the time.
Yeah, kind of like Montessori school.
Yeah.
During your tenure as library director, have you seen an increase in library cards?
Yes. Last year we went through a rebranding campaign, so we have a new logo, and we did a lot of outreach in the community. We did some TV ads, radio ads, billboards you may have seen around town, and we did a lot of library card sign-up events on college campuses and schools and community events and out at the mall. with the result that we've added, oh gosh, I want to say like 20,000 new library card holders in the past year and a half or so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really exciting. That is so exciting.
Uh-huh.
And you mentioned a few of the things that probably contributed to the increase of the library cards.
Yeah.
Obviously, the rebranding, increased marketing, going to, attend to the university, reaching out.
Yeah.
Do you think there was one main thing that contributed to the increase, or just?
I think it's all together. I think people already knew that the library was here and that we had a lot to offer, but maybe they'd forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get out there and make ourselves visible and remind people that, gosh, look at all we got going on here, then they think, oh yeah, I better go check it out.
Exactly. Don Pope question, what skill did you gain from the military that you use in your present day job?
One of the things that I use all the time, and it's both from the military and from my science background, is a focus on database decision making. It's really important not to just go with emotions all the time. I think a lot of what we do in the library is kind of emotion based because we're a feel-good organization and we're here to help people. But in order to be our best at helping people, we have to know what exactly they need and be able to measure that and determine the effect of what we do so that we can tailor it exactly to what the community needs.
So how do you use this data to improve the quality of the services that the library provides?
Well, for example, if we look at our circulation statistics, in other words, what's being checked out, how many different items are being checked out, and we see that the e-books are accelerating very rapidly, the downloadable magazines, the streaming music and movies off the website, those are just increasing at a phenomenal rate. That indicates we need to be putting more resources toward those items.
Right.
So we make adjustments in our collections budget so that we spend more money on the things that people want the most.
That makes sense. What is your favorite part about being a librarian? It could just be one word, it could be, one thing.
People. I'm a people person, and I like seeing people. I like seeing people get their needs met, and I like seeing people smile.
That's awesome. I love that. Using your smarts to help people. Okay, so what are you most excited about in the future?
I can't say if there's one specific thing. What excites me the most is seeing my staff and the wonderful things they do and the ideas they come up with. We've just recently published our own ebook. So rather than just buying an ebook, we made an ebook, and that was the staff's idea. We had an item in our Kentucky room, and it turns out we have the last remaining print copy in the world of this particular book. And it's so fragile that we can't really handle it. We can't let people come in and read it. So our staff decided to transcribe it and turn it into an ebook, and we got an academic person who had studied this particular subject to write a foreword. So we now have created content as opposed to simply buying it and making it available.
That's really cool. What is this book called?
It's called The Real Madeline Pollard, and it's the story of a scandal in the 19th century.
In Lexington?
Yes.
Awesome.
It is.
Can you repeat the title one more time for everyone?
The Real Madeline Pollard.
And
if it's not already available through our website, it will be within the next few days.
Anne Hammond, thank you so much. I'm so impressed by you. I mean, you are such a cool person. You're so smart. Thank you so much for doing this interview. Would you like to add any last words before we finish?
Oh, well, just that I feel very lucky and blessed to have the job that I do and to be able to work with the people I work with on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Anne Hammond, I wish you a wonderful day. Thank
Thanks.
you.